Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to my channel where I talk about how to heal the emotional aspects of chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue, because that is how I am healing my illnesses and have been healing for a couple years and have seen tremendous progress without doing any supplementation or any other kind of protocol. So today I'm talking about one of the most important messages that I have to offer. This is the most important thing that I talk about on this channel. And if you take nothing else from my channel, from my videos, I want you to take this. The most important piece of healing chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue is healing the nervous system, is calming the nervous system. It is the most crucial part, and it has to come before the other pieces. You cannot go into healing the emotional aspects. You cannot heal the trauma and the wounds from your past, the emotional toxicity that's contributing to or causing this illness, if you have not calmed the nervous system first. And let me explain why. So bringing up old wounds and old trauma, if you know that you have some, if you know that you have some element of emotional toxicity that's contributing to this illness or is your root cause, then you might be vaguely aware of the kinds of emotions that might be in there. And if you think about those emotions, a lot of them are very triggering to the nervous system. They will hijack your nervous system if you're not prepared for them. They have the ability, and when we've got trauma, it changes the brain, it changes the nervous system. It increases the amount of receptors we have for cortisol, so that we are sort of primed for the external environment to trigger our fight-flight response. We are primed to see the world as dangerous to our inner child. So emotional danger equates then to physical danger when you're a child, because we need to be taken care of emotionally as a child to feel safe in the world. When you're a child, all of your receptors, you're in download mode. You're in this theta brainwave mode where you're downloading all the information. What is the world going to have in store for me? And when you experience a lot of wounding and trauma, but any wounding and pain that targets some part of your sense of self, when you experience those things as a child, what you're learning about the world is not safe. I am not safe in the world. The way I am, the way things are, the way I am is not safe in this world. And I have to be certain ways. I have to do certain things. I have to be certain ways with other people. And this is the way I need to be in order to get love and safety in the world. Well, as we go through our lives, these rules that we have in our minds, these beliefs of ways that we need to be, ways that the world needs to work or else I can't feel safe, wreak havoc, because as we go through our lives, things happen and things come up. Things are going to be triggering and you're never going to feel safe all the time. If you have an if-then statement in your unconscious that says the conditions in which you can feel safe, you will feel safe, that doesn't work, because the world just throws stuff at you. And especially because the way I believe it in the spiritual perspective of that is that the universe presents things before you that are things that you believe about yourself that are disempowering, tries to show you again and again and again the ways that you are disempowering yourself, the ways that are not working for you, the ways that you are attracting negative energy to you unconsciously because you have some belief, some disempowering belief about yourself and the world and yourself in the world. So these wounds, these traumas, these wounds, these pain, when we have deep pain that stems from our childhood. As I said, when you're a child, these things, the pain, emotional pain, can equate to physical unsafety. And so we end up feeling unsafe in the world. When you feel unsafe is when your sympathetic nervous system response is activated. That's when fight or flight comes. When you feel like your life is being threatened, then that's the way we are all wired. That's to save us. That's so that we can get out of danger. And so when we believe we're in danger, then our fight or flight response is evoked, and we release cortisol, more cortisol and adrenaline. And it actually causes an entire hormonal cascade of events and cellular changes to help us escape from danger. But if what's happening is emotional triggers are happening in our lives that trigger the thing from childhood, when it's something from childhood is when we feel physically threatened by an emotional thing that's happening in the world, some emotional trigger, something, if it triggers that pain from our childhood, it's going to trigger that sympathetic response. Now, if you have been spending years and years and years, as so many of us do, and everybody who has chronic fatigue or adrenal fatigue has been spending years and years in a chronic state, habitual state of sympathetic nervous system response, because we're being constantly activated, we're getting the information from the world that is telling us it is not safe for one way or another. Our interpersonal dynamics, how we interact with work, with our friends, with our partners, with ourselves, with our family, things happen in our world that are going to trigger these old wounds and old pain. And so our sympathetic response, and if we feel like our life is not going well, we don't have good work, we don't have good, we don't feel stable in our home. I mean, these things, these root chakra topics, particularly if there's any way that you feel unsafe in the world and in your circumstances, your sympathetic response is going to be activated all the time. So if you have been in a chronic state of sympathetic response, your body has already suffered a lot of mitochondrial damage and dysfunction by the mitochondria takes those threat signals and responds by turning off energy production mode and transitioning to cell defense mode. It goes into a cell protection stance. So it spends all of its mitochondrial energy in defending the cell instead of producing energy for you to function. So if you've been in a chronic state of sympathetic response, you've been in a chronic state of mitochondria responding by turning off into the cell defense mode, transitioning to cell defense mode. So you've had this background fatigue growing and growing and growing. The longer time you spend in sympathetic nervous system state, in fight or flight, the more mitochondrial changes you're going to have. And so if you have already had a lot of mitochondrial damage, you've already been in this sympathetic state, and then you learn about trauma and wounds, and you learn that this might be how you heal the fatigue, and you jump into it without calming the nervous system first, what's going to happen is you're going to be in these situations where your sympathetic response is going to be triggered even more. It's going to be on overdrive. It's going to jack up those hormones. It's going to jack up your nervous system. It's going to hijack your nervous system. And it's going to be so easy to flood your emotional receptors, flood your resources, your emotional resources, to overwhelm you so that you can't do any healing. It's going to be too easy. When you're already so close to the threshold, you bring up a wound that's triggering, and it's going to send you over the edge. That is one way that you could risk re-traumatizing yourself if you're bringing up old stuff and you don't have a handle on your nervous system. So my message for you, and this is so important, I just can't stress how important this is. This is fundamental. If you are interested in healing wounds and trauma, you have to calm the nervous system first. And not just right now, but in a habitual way. So you are rewiring your nervous system, you are retraining it to default into a parasympathetic response. You're training it to default into a calm, rest, digest, and heal state. You're training it to be in that state all the time. And so if you're there all the time, the vast majority of time, then when you start to go into heal some trauma and something is brought up that's really upsetting, that's really painful, that evokes that nervous system response, it's going to bring you into a sympathetic response, but you're going to be able to see it and feel it and heal it much more effectively because you have that background, because you're normally in this healing state. Your body can handle short spurts. This is how our body's supposed to work. Your body can handle these short spurts into a sympathetic response, but then you have to be able to bring yourself back down. And when your nervous system, as all of us with adrenal fatigue or chronic fatigue, our nervous systems have been trained to sort of stay in this habitual stress mode, then we haven't practiced, we haven't cultivated this ability to calm ourselves back down. Now, everything is relative, right? So you might be watching this and feel like, my body is calm. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel stressed right now. But something that I talk about a lot is this idea that when we're in a chronic state of anything, our body habituates to it. And we get numb to it. We get used to the feeling of being in that state. I can tell you from first hand that I was not only used to being in that state and had no idea that I was stuck in that state, basically, but I actually wanted to be in that state. I mean, this is a real thing, and this is so common that there becomes an addiction to that state. And that's especially because if you have been in this state long enough, chronic state, and those mitochondria have been switching into cell defense mode and stopped producing energy, you've got this growing background fatigue. And so develops this belief that if I don't have cortisol and adrenaline, and maybe you don't know that's what's going on, but if I don't have that sort of wired state, I can't function at all. I can't go to work. I can't think. I can't clean. I can't take care of other people. I can't take care of myself. I can't do anything. I'm too tired. And so I have to stay in this state of, wired. We've all heard this term wired and tired. That's what it is. You're wired because you are in a sympathetic state, but you're tired because of that background fatigue that's caused by the mitochondria turning into little cell defense machines instead of energy production machines for us. And so that's what wired and tired is. And anybody who has chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue knows that feeling. And you might be so used to it that maybe it doesn't feel that way. But if you really start becoming introspective and conscious about what's going on in your body, I think you'll realize that you are in that state, or you think back and remember when you were in that state. If you're in stage 3 of adrenal fatigue or advanced chronic fatigue, all those systems sort of shut down and you actually are in more of a freeze state, which is not constant adrenaline and cortisol. Everything slows down, shuts down, so that you are so exhausted you literally can do almost nothing. You can be triggered into a crash of some kind very easily, because your nervous system is still in threat mode. There are parts of you that are still even though there's a part of you that has shut down and calmed down, there's also a part of you that is still revved, and still, because you're still under threat, you're still under that same threat. Because it's an entire physiological experience that's happening when you have these wounds and you're being triggered by your external environment. And so we become so accustomed. We become so accustomed to being in fight or flight that we don't realize we're there. And even if we do realize we're there can be a really intense, I had such an intense emotional repulsion to the idea that I needed to be calming my body. I felt like that is the last thing I need. I was barely functioning as it was. How could that be that I need to calm my body even more? Calm my body? No. When I calm my body, I feel worse. And that happens in the beginning. And these are reasons that I'm talking about. There is a lot of resistance when you first start calming your nervous system or learn about nervous system calming. You might feel I don't need that. Or well, I've already got that covered. What else? What else do you have? Or, no, I can't do that. I'll do the other stuff. Or I can't do that. I can't function, so I'm just gonna try to do it without calming my nervous system because then I'm too tired to do anything in my life. Those reactions are so normal. So normal, and I can't tell you how much I understand them. I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you. I can go back to that time and feel it so viscerally. Can't do that. There's this belief that I cannot do that. So what ended up happening is I got really far into stage 3 of adrenal fatigue. And my chronic fatigue syndrome just continued to get worse and worse. And the two of them just convoluted and crossed over. And there were a couple of years that it was all one. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference. What ended up happening was that I refused to heal early on. I was never going to give up my coffee and being addicted to this, stimulation, always trying to stimulate myself to wake me up because I was so exhausted. What ended up happening is then I got so far into stage 3 and I started spiraling as I was having adrenal crashes every couple weeks. As I was spiraling down, my body forced me to stop functioning. Forced me. I had been barely functioning for years, and now it had gotten so bad that now I couldn't function at all. You can no longer get out of your bed. You can no longer do anything that you used to do. You can no longer pick up your son. You can no longer go out with friends. You can no longer talk to people on the phone because it's too stimulating. You can no longer cook. You can no longer clean. You can no longer go to the grocery store. You can no longer do any of these things because you will pay attention to me. That is the message that I believe stage 3 advanced adrenal fatigue is telling you. You won't listen to me. I will make you listen to me. You have not been listening to me for many years, and we didn't do it purposefully. We just didn't know what we were doing to ourselves. But now it's gotten to the point that you are damaging the body so much, it's going to force you to stop. And my hope for you is that you get this information way sooner than I did. I don't wish that advanced adrenal fatigue on anyone. Anyone. But no matter where you are in this adrenal fatigue or chronic fatigue journey, you must calm your nervous system. So again, when I got to this point, I had no choice but to calm it. I was so desperate to heal. I had to, because if I didn't, I was going to continue to crash and I was going to end up in the hospital. I was this close to getting into stage 4, which is so unbelievably difficult to come out of, and you end up in the hospital with cardiac events. Your heart, your cardiovascular system needs the adrenal hormones that you have. And so if you can't produce them anymore, your cardiac system responds, and over time it gets worse and worse. So I had to. And so I started on this journey of breathing to calm my nervous system. And I learned this amazing breathing technique along the way from a functional medicine, an adrenal functional guy that I was seeing who taught me this breathing technique that changed everything. And I will sing the praises of this breathing technique forever. And I'll explain what that breathing technique is. But I'm going to tell you, I had so much resistance to it because when I started the breathing, every time I did this breathing, I got worse. I felt worse. I felt worse every time I did this breathing. And if I wasn't desperate enough to calm my nervous system, I might have stopped. Because when you are suffering so greatly and you are doing something that makes you feel worse, it's not that you're getting worse, you're actually getting better. It's that you actually can feel everything that's actually going on in your body. When you're in a sympathetic state, there is a numbing effect. That's why we do it. That's part of the function of the sympathetic response in our body, to numb you to an extent. And that's why it's a really effective tool for running from our old and painful emotions. Because if you stay in that state, there is numbing. You can never numb from these things completely. They're always following you. They're always in your aura. They're always in your body. But it's like you're numbing it enough to cope and go on with your life. Problem is, it doesn't work, and you are very prone to developing an illness like this. So when I would do this breathing technique, it would calm my body and it would bring me into a parasympathetic state. But again, what happens when you bring yourself in a parasympathetic state, when you've been in a chronic sympathetic state, is that all of a sudden you can feel every painful energy and every burden in your body to the fullest. And it hurts. And it is painful. But it's reality. Because it's actually what's happening in your body, but you haven't been able to feel it because you've been numbing it with a sympathetic response. I was in a very severe place. I was in a very advanced state. And so it took me months. And I don't know where you are. I don't know where you are in your adrenal fatigue journey or your chronic fatigue journey, but it might not take you this long. It took me 3 months to stop my decline. All this time that I was breathing, for 3 months, I was still getting worse because it was like a freight train that had all this momentum. My nervous system was so habitually stuck, and even when I stopped breathing, and I also had a limited amount of time that I could do this breathing, so the more time you can spend doing this breathing, the better, and the faster you're going to heal. Because the more parts of the day that you can stay in a parasympathetic rest, digest, and heal state, the faster you're going to heal. But what would happen for me is I only had like 2 30-minute sessions every day to do this breathing. So after, I would get up and I was even heavier. I was even more fatigued. I had my fibromyalgia was worse. My joints hurt. My muscles hurt. My head was groggy and foggy, and my limbs felt like they weighed, they were made of lead, like they weighed 100 pounds each. And oh my gosh, how was I going to get through that the rest of the day? But my nervous system was so trained to get into that sympathetic response again that it would take almost nothing to bring me back into a sympathetic response. And so it took me a long time to stop spiraling down with these adrenal crashes, to stop crashing. And then it took many months after that. It took me about 18 months to completely rewire my nervous system so that I am defaulting. My default point is in a calm state. That took me 18 months, but again, it might very well not take that long for you. If you can spend more time in the parasympathetic state, keep your body in that parasympathetic state with more breathing. If you do breathing every hour, on the hour, or multiple times a day, every couple hours, or every few minutes, you can just check in with your breath. If you do that, you will heal a lot faster. And if you aren't as progressed as I was, then of course you're going to be able to reverse it faster than I was. Well, let me explain the breathing technique. The breathing technique is a technique that is different than any other one that I've found because it has no breath holding and it is completely even. So I like to picture an ellipse, an oval, an egg, whatever you want it to be, and imagine you're tracing that with your breath. Now, if you think about an oval is not going to have any sharp corners, which means to me, or flat edges, which means to me no holding the breath ever. Ever. Because any amount of holding the breath triggers that sympathetic response. It's so subtle, but when your nervous system is so frayed, so haywire, like it is when you have chronic fatigue or advanced adrenal fatigue, your nervous system is so primed for fear, for stress. And so anything that moves you into that stress, your body, your physiology into the stress state is the opposite of what you want. And so there's no holding your breath. So you want to trace with your mind, with your breath, that oval. And it's the same length of time up and down and up and down. And when you are very sensitive and exhausted, you might only want to go do that within 50% of your lung capacity. Because when you get into full diaphragmatic breaths, and that's key, it has to be a diaphragmatic breath, not a chest breath. You want to be pulling air into your abdomen, not your chest, into your abdomen, down into your abdomen. That's going to be hard because if you've been in a chronic sympathetic state, you have probably been chest breathing for most of the days, for a long time. And I remember in the beginning, I was physically unable to take diaphragmatic breaths. So I had to lie down. And even to this day, when I do this exercise, I still prefer to do it lying down. But in the beginning, you definitely want to be lying down. You want to get as much relaxation in your physiology as you possibly can to have the best chance at getting air into your diaphragm. So as I was saying, taking a deep breath and filling your whole diaphragm up also can be triggering to that stress. It's a little bit of stress, just the tiniest bit of stress to your nervous system, and you don't want that. Same with exhaling all the way. It's almost like holding your breath. What you need for your mission in life to calm your nervous system is that. Everything about your day, everything about your mind needs to be focused on calm. It doesn't matter what it takes. And so, stay within 50% in the beginning of your lung capacity, or less, or whatever it takes. And do this up and down breathing. Slow, but not too slow to stress your body. Just do whatever feels comfortable. Whatever feels comfortable is going to be whatever is not going to be stressful for you. Now, it might be challenging, but that's different than stressful. And so if you start getting really fatigued, take a break and breathe normally, and then start again. This is so important. I can't stress how important this is. So if you are embarking on any emotional healing, emotional toxicity healing in your life, you need to be 100% certain that you are in a parasympathetic state most of the time, like all the time, except when you have these brief periods of like you're late or something that triggers you to be in a sympathetic response for a short period of time, but you have the ability to calm your nervous system back down. If you're there, then you're ready to start healing and letting these emotions up and looking into what they're about and where they came from and acknowledging them and working to heal them, do havening techniques and things, all the other things that I teach on this channel. But you have to do this first. And one of the ways to tell if you're in a sympathetic state versus a parasympathetic state is with your breath. So just come into yourself and become conscious of where is the breath going. When I'm breathing normally, what's moving? My chest or my stomach? That's the best indicator that I have found to tell whether you're in a sympathetic or parasympathetic response state. I also had, when I was in sympathetic state response, I would also have, like when I tried to close my eyes, they would quiver. I also, like having scrunched shoulders, having chronic, tense, tight muscles in your body is another way to tell that you're in a sympathetic state. You're bracing yourself to be hurt, to be threatened, somebody's going to hurt you. Something out there is threatening to you, so you're bracing yourself. That's another way, but I will say the breath, noticing are you chest breathing or stomach breathing is the best way to tell. And start taking note throughout your day. That could be your first step. Just start taking note throughout your day of how much time am I spending in this. And so if you just check in with yourself every 20 minutes, every 30, whatever you can do, just take notice. Where is my breath going? Is it going into my stomach? That's where it needs to be going. And if it's not, if it's going into your chest, there's There's no need to panic about that. It's just, oh wow, I'm in a stress state and I didn't even know it. That's interesting. And then go to your bed or couch, lie down somewhere, and if you can, and do this breathing exercise. Obviously, second best is sitting. Standing is really, that's like the advanced course. To be able to do it standing is, when you've been in a chronic state of stress, that's the advanced level. But even sitting in a chair, I could not do it for a long time. So just be easy on yourself and try to lie down. Lie down on the floor if you need to. But lie down and shift it. Work on shifting it as best you can. I encourage you to find it interesting of how much of the time are you in a stress state versus a calm state, because you might be surprised, especially when you're working, when you're out and about, when there's a lot of stimuli around. As I quickly mentioned, I mean, even talking on the phone with friends and family would be so stimulating for me. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to do. But I was so past, I was way past the point at which my nervous system could get the benefit of that. It was still, I was on the brink all the time. And so that shift of activation, stimulation of any kind, even just having a nice conversation with a family or friend, was activating enough to send me into a sympathetic response. And I didn't have the capacity to reset myself before this breathing technique. Couldn't do it. So I hope this was helpful. Please, I hope you take my advice, because this is something I know to be true from personal painful experiences and so much trial and error. And I want you to be able to heal faster and easier than me. So please take my plea and do this experimentation. See how much of the time you're spending in stress versus calm states. Check with your breath, and then shift it with your breath if you need to. And start cultivating this idea that this is the first step in healing these fatigue illnesses, or even if you don't have if you have any kind of chronic illness, to still check in with this. It's like, where's my nervous system? Because you don't want to embark on an emotional healing, releasing journey, excavating journey, when there are painful things that are going to come up, and it's okay, we can handle it if our nervous system is calm. Then we have the resources that we need to deal with them and to reset while we're dealing with, after we've felt that, and when it's time to calm down, we can, because we've practiced it for so long. That's already wired into our nervous system. We're rewiring our nervous system, and that's one of the things we're wiring, is that ability to sort of teach your nervous system that I can do this. We can bring us back to a parasympathetic state. This is crucial, crucial, crucial. I can't stress it enough how crucial this is. And this is how you're going to heal. Because how your mitochondria shifted into a cell defense mode out of energy production, and which is what's causing your fatigue, is by being in a chronic sympathetic state. So if you teach your nervous system to be in a chronic parasympathetic state, in a chronic calm state, your mitochondria are going to start getting that message that you're not under threat, that you are safe. You're safe in your environment, and you're safe most of the time. And slowly but surely, they will start turning back into energy production machines, which is what we want. That's how we get our health back from these illnesses. We need those mitochondria to turn back on. And think of them as little babies, little children. We need to show them that they are safe. These little mitochondria, you're safe. You're safe in there. I'm going to show you that you're safe. I'm going to keep my body safe so you get the message that we're safe. We're safe. So turn back on, little guys. That was silly. But it's kind of what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to send them the signal that our environment is safe and we are safe. so that they will do what we really want and produce that energy for us so that all our systems come back to full functioning and we have vibrant energy again. It is possible. It is possible. Your mitochondria don't, like, this is not permanent damage. I don't believe in that at all. This is not permanent. This is reversible. 100%. They just need to learn that they're safe. Okay. Oh, I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day. If this was helpful, if this resonated for you, please like this video, share it online if you can, and subscribe to my channel to learn more about this healing journey of these tough fatigue illnesses, but are completely reversible. And comment below if you want. So I'd love to hear from you, and have a beautiful rest of your day. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.